Welcome, wonderful fiber artists. This is Shiree with Rehashfiber, and today we're going to go on an adventure in dyeing fiber. I spin every day, and I spin a variety of things. And lately I have been spinning a lot of animal fiber in its natural color, which is fabulous in and of itself. However, my brain does need some color fun. We're going to do that today. We're going to do some dyeing. And I'm going to tell you the reason I say it's adventure is I'm not quite sure where we're going with it yet. And that's kind of the fun that I have with dyeing. I know what I have and I know kind of where I want to end up. So we're going to go through this together. I have some llama merino mix. This texture it's soft, but it's got the strength of the llama. So I think it'll make a really nice bag. And I would like to dye this colors so that it is more fun for me to do. And will make the bag a bit more interesting. So we're gonna go with that and just not sure what colors yet. Now this, I have some super fine merino that is so soft, you almost can't feel it. Do you know what I mean? It's like the soft of the cotton candy that feels like, is it really there between my fingers? And so you know how great this is. I have this skein of yarn that has a variety of purples and some chartreuse in it. And I want to do this as a variety of purples to go with it. If you're curious, come along with me as we dye this up. I'll tell you things along the way and we'll see how it all comes out. The very first step in dyeing is to weigh your fibers, and it's called weight of goods. So I have this scale here set to grams. Put my nice little bowl on top so that it already accounts for that weight. I'm gonna just weigh my fiber. My weight of goods is 112 grams, and that you want to know for when you're measuring your dye. The next step is to get your fiber soaking in warm water. I use just a dab of dish soap, just a tiny dab, but you see how much foam it's done anyway. It's okay. So I have my fiber soaking. I've got some already in the dye pot here. And we're gonna get this brown llama soaking in the soapy water. So I do not have an exact time that this should soak for. I would say at least 20 minutes. What I do is I just get it soaking, and the reason you're doing that is so it will open up the fibers so they can take the dye. And I just get it soaking, and then in about 20 minutes I start working with the pot that I want to dye while the others are still soaking. So that's how I get it going. The things I want to remind you is that always use just designated pots and pans and tools for fiber only. As you can see, I went through and I took a Sharpie and I wrote on everything, fiber only, and I keep it in the closet in the laundry room. I went to places where you can get things inexpensively, like Walmart, the dollar store, garage sales, and estate sales. I've got extra pots and pans, and this Farberware I got from Walmart, and this is where I do my dyeing because it plugs in here, and then you can adjust the temperature. It has the nice ventilated lid. You can see what's going on. It works great for dyeing. So we're gonna let these soak, and in the meantime, we're gonna start picking out dye colors. Now it's getting exciting because we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the dyeing. First, I wanna say supplies. You can always use your supplies over and over again. I have a handy little bag here full of cups, spoons, and little miscellaneous things to put dye and powder in if I should need to. I also have little syringes, which you can pick up in all variety of ways, whether it's medicine syringes that you have left over, you never know. Hang on to those just in case you want to be able to add little bits of dye to the dye pot. This is very helpful. I get all my acid dyes from Dharma Dyes, and I ordered this so that I have an idea of the colors that I have. Every time I order and have a color, I put a little Sharpie mark next to the name of the color so that when I come back to it for dyeing, I can see what I have. Then I can think about, do I want to mix some colors to create new colors? And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's talk scales. You saw the scale I had before, and this is for what I would say measuring large amounts of fiber. And when I mean large amounts, I mean like 4 ounces of fiber. This is a scale that I use for little minute parts of dye. You need it to go very small so that you can be accurate. And this brand is a Uniway, and I'll include that in the description of the show. So I'm going to tell you how I come about with getting some colors. First of all, dyeing for me is just fun, and there's times I just want to play around with it and I'm not worried about the outcome at all. Let's just see what happens, and I always end up using it. Now I have this skein of spun fiber, and I love the colors, and I want more yarn to go with it. So I am thinking purple. And so I took out my deep purple, and we are going to do just a nice solid dark deep purple. That's going to be one of the colors. Now this is all going to happen in the same pot, and I'm going to show you how that can happen. The next color is I want to just take some deep purple and some delphinium blue, and I want to mix it, but I want to go lighter. And the third color in the same pot, I want to mix some of the deep purple with some of the plum dandy and get a little bit more of a lighter, a little more of a plummy type of purple. So I'm going to show you how we do that, and it all comes down to the grams of your fiber. Now, to make it simple, if you want to have your true color, you're going to use 1% weight of goods. If I have 100 grams, I'm going to use 1 gram of dye. Now, don't forget in your kit of everything that you have a nice mask, an N95. You don't want to inhale any of the dye powder. It is not good for you. And so I always just keep the mask in the bag so I can use it. For measuring dyes, what I want to convey to you is the concept. Because if I start telling you all my grams for my fiber and how I'm dividing it, you're just going to be hearing a bunch of numbers, and I'm afraid it would be very confusing. So the concept is what I want to get across to you. Always remember, with Dharma dyes, it's 1% of weight of goods. So that is what you always want to start with. If you want to cut it down and cut it down by 75%, just figure it out on your handy calculator. Take your dye down and you will get a lighter color of that dye. If you want to make it darker, then do more than 1%. If you want to combine colors, you can do it that way. You can cut it any way you want to combine. But what's important is to take notes. Because if you really like something, you want to be able to replicate it. And also, you want an accurate reading of your dyes, especially if you want to replicate it. So just remember that, and we will go on from here. What I am doing with my first dye pot is I'm going to dye 3 different colors in the same pot. I went with the 1% weight of goods. I'm only going to put that on the third of what's in the pot. And then the others, I'm going lighter. Now, to keep your color of that color in one place, you want to add the vinegar to your cup. And that way, it's your cup of dye and your vinegar and water, and you pour it just over the area that you want to dye. If you were to be doing one whole batch of fiber, all the same color, you can just add the vinegar to the whole pot, because that color is going to swish and swirl throughout the whole pot, and you'll get an equal color on your fiber. But if you want to keep it separate, keep your vinegar separate to that color. And I'm going to show you that right now because I have previously made up the 3 different colors that I want to use on what's in the pot. All right, I have my dye pot set to warm. And I apologize, I thought I had the camera on and I didn't. So I'm going to show you what I did. I took my dark purple and I poured it right on 1/3. And I just went ahead and used my spoon to move some of the dye around and get it in the fiber. I took my dark purple mixed with the delphinium blue. So instead of doing 1% weight of good, I did 0.25, okay? So a quarter of the amount. I wanted it to go lighter. However, I did that with both colors to mix it. So it is gonna be a little bit darker. Okay, this is my adventure in fiber. I remind you, I'm a recreational dyer, so you're getting the fun side of it, enough to get you going, okay? The last color was the dark purple and the plum. Same deal. I only did a quarter of what I needed for that color. 0.25 of 1% weight of good. All right, so it's on warm. I turned it up. I started it on warm. I turned it up to 200. I'm gonna get the lid on it, let it get to a bubbly boil, and then I'm gonna back it off again and just let it be warm for a while so that the dye can saturate and take. The dye struck very quickly, and how you can tell with that is that there's no more dye in the water. It helps when you have a white spoon because you can see the color has left the water and it is all in the fiber. Now, I'm very easygoing at dyeing, as I've said, and I see there's white spots in here. That's fine. I think it's gonna be really pretty when it's spun up. And I did not want a solid hard color. I wanted some shading, so it looks like I've got it. Now, I found a little bit of white in there that is a little bit too much for me, so I'm just gonna mix up a little bit more dye of that same color, and I'm gonna add it to that. All right, I added the color and it has absorbed. As you can see here, there's no more dye left in the water. So it has all struck into the fiber. And now we can just let the fiber cool and then we'll take a closer look at it. To prevent your fiber from felting, never take it from a hot pot to a cold pot or rinse it in cold water. You can let it sit here until the temperature cools off itself. Or if you need the pot, like I often do, I'll just transfer it to another pot and let it cool off naturally. Now we're gonna dye the brown llama merino mix, and I want to make it a dark navy. I put a sample bit in here and it's actually very, very dark. I don't see the brown anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and go with it. Maybe when it dries, I'll see some navy. If not, it's gonna look more like black. That's fine. I just wanted a different color. So when we're doing a whole pot of the same color, I went ahead and added a bunch of vinegar to the pot, and I can go ahead and put the dye in the whole pot. It's not going to be specific to any part of the fiber. And then I'm just going to add all the brown llama. And let that soak up the dye. I'm going to add a little bit more water to that. Get it just covered. We're going to let it heat up. I'm going to set it to 200. And then we'll take that temperature down once it starts to boil a little bit. All right, we're going to check here the deep navy on the brown llama and see if all of the dye has struck to the fiber. So that's good. It can come out of the dye pot now. We're going to dye the cream colored llama merino mix right now, and I'm going to add some vinegar to the pot and then the dye, and I've got Dharma Dye's sage leaf here. Get that all evenly dispersed in the water. And then we'll add the llama here. It's a really fun color. Sage leaf is one of my favorites. We're going to let that get up to 200 and see how the dye takes. Okay, I want to show you something fun. I had some leftover fiber, and so I just chose a color that I thought would be fun. And Halloween's coming up, so I chose a tan yellow color and I went ahead and dyed it. Now we're going to have some fun with sprinkling some of the dye on to create some little spots in the fiber. I'm going to go ahead and put a mask on because you always want to wear a mask when you're dealing with dye. You do need to mix some citrus acid with the dye that you're going to sprinkle on. because you need this citric acid to help it stick to the fiber. And then you can find this at Walmart. And I'm going to put some of the dye in here and then just sprinkle it like so. Okay, if you saw that, this is a learning experience all along the way. These holes are way too big for the dye, so a whole bunch just went on the fiber. So I'm going to show you what else you can do. I want you to see how the yarn looks now that it's been all spun up and then washed. And this is the really soft, super fine merino. It's gorgeous. I love the variances and the purples and just very happy. So that came out nicely. And look how good it's gonna go with this. So that worked out really well. We have the llama merino here in navy, which this started off as brown, dark brown. So it took the navy well, and you can still see some shading in there, a little bit of the brown of that llama, and I really like it because it gives the yarn character. It's a strong yarn. It's going to be making a handbag. You see a little bit of that VM in there. A little bit was left even after everything. It's okay. When I knit it and I see it, I'll pluck it out. Beautiful. We have the sage leaf color of the llama merino mix. My favorite color. It's fabulous. It also is going in the handbag and very happy with it. Different shading, whole lot of fun. The orange that I did where I was trying to get the brown speckles. The mistake that was made there was that it was too wet in the pot. I didn't have much water in there, but the yarn was very wet and saturated. And what happened is when I put the little sprinkles on, they just dissolved and spread out. So the lesson there is you want it drier. You need your yarn a little bit damp, but not as damp as I had it, because you want the granules to stay in their shape so that you get the nice little specks. However, I am not unhappy. I just have a shaded yarn. Very fun. Love the colors of the yarn. A successful dyeing day. Thank you for joining me on that recreational dye day. I've now got all these great colors to work with. I'm really excited about it. I just want to remind you that if you're interested in merchandise from Rehash Fiber, go to my website, rehashfiber.com. You can get the globe of yarn, which is my logo, on a variety of things, and the logo is done in a variety of ways as well. Also, if you want to have your friends scratching their head, you can get your Got Kiviute merchandise, and they'll be like, what's that all about? And you can tell them it's the soft fur of the muskox. That you're a true fiber artist because you know what that is. Anyhow, it helps keep the show going, so check out the merchandise. All right, everybody, happy dyeing, and thanks for watching.